What's going on, guys? Jake Peffer here. Welcome back to Jake's Cinema Room. I am back today with another review for you guys, and I am going to be looking at the latest Marvel Disney Plus series, She-Hulk. It just ended its 9-episode run, and I am going to give my thoughts on the series. I'm going to call it a series for now because even though there's some rumors going around about a season 2, it has yet to officially be confirmed, so I'm not going to quite call this season 1 just yet, in case there isn't a season 2. Anyway, so yeah, She-Hulk. Interesting show, to say the least. This has sparked a lot of very, very differing opinions, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on it. And for the most part, I had some fun with this show. I didn't think it was all that bad. You have Jennifer Walters, who's played by Tatiana Maslany. She is the cousin of Bruce Banner, a.k.a. the Hulk, played by Mark Ruffalo, who does appear in a few episodes of this series. While they're riding together, they get into a car accident, and Bruce Banner's blood accidentally gets dropped into an open wound on Jennifer's body, and she gains his powers. She becomes the She-Hulk, the titular She-Hulk of the show. And the entire series, it's basically her struggling with trying to not only have a normal life as Jennifer Walters, but also kind of grow into this new superhero of sorts, She-Hulk, that she's just, not all too familiar with. So she gets some advice from her cousin. That's kind of in the first episode or two. He basically kind of shows her how to be a Hulk. And then she gets back into her law profession. And it's, you go through a lot of this series with people only wanting her to be She-Hulk. And it's kind of her struggling with having to deal with people only wanting her to be that way and not really showcasing her true self as Jennifer. And I think for the most part, that conceit works pretty well. You do get a lot of really good scenes throughout where, it does show her struggle between trying to balance a normal everyday life, being a lawyer, but also having to adhere to what all of her fans and the general public want and want her to be She-Hulk. And I think that's one of the stronger aspects of this show, is them kind of showing that back and forth. You do get a lot of really good cameos throughout this series. Obviously, like I said, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, he shows up for a few episodes, and it's a welcome to see Mark Ruffalo back on here. His character kind of disappears after a few episodes, but then makes a short appearance back toward the end. As they seem like they're kind of setting up a possible solo Hulk movie. Here's hoping for that. You do get Emil Blonsky, a.k.a. the Abomination, who was played by Tim Roth. He's reprising his role, and he goes through kind of a redemption of his character, which was in the trailers and what was reported early on a little misleading. A lot of people took him being in the show as he was going to be one of the main villains, and he really ends up not being that in any way, shape, or form. But it is nice to see him again, and he does show up for about 3 or 4 episodes, and most of his time on screen is pretty enjoyable. You also have a character named Titania, who was, again, thought to be one of the major villains of the series, and she gets kind of peppered in throughout this series. Wasn't crazy about her portrayal and that particular character. It just felt like they kind of brought her in at random times. And again, they're kind of playing into the sitcom. The sitcom aspect of the show is what's going to kind of throw everything for a loop, because with it being a comedy, it kind of brings forth where they can get a little bit crazier with things and a little bit more zany, as well with Jennifer breaking the fourth wall, which I didn't have a problem with. There are times where it does kind of take you out of the scene, because a lot of the time it is pretty random. Where Deadpool kind of started that trend, and they did a good job with it in his 2 movies. Here, like I said, it works for the most part, but there are times where it feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere and doesn't really fit in with the scene or with the episode. But nonetheless, I thought for the most part it works. And it leads up to a very great fourth wall breaking, I thought, in the finale, which I won't spoil anything if you haven't seen it, but is probably one of the biggest fourth wall breaks of any show or movie I've ever seen. I think the biggest problem for me with this series was in the villain area. Like I said, you had Titania, who's kind of like a semi-villain throughout the show, but they never really have a central villain. They kind of hint at one throughout the run of the series, but almost it feels like it comes in too late. You get into maybe episode 3 or 4, maybe even 5, before you really kind of get an inkling of there being like an overall arc with a villain. And when it eventually gets to who the villain is and what their motive was and all this kind of stuff, it kind of hits with a thud. There's just not really much there. I think it would have been better to maybe explore more with Titania. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of her character, I think you could have played her up to be more of a villain throughout the series, or even had the Abomination be more of a villain throughout until you give him his redemption story. It just, like I said, the way they go about the villain side, it does play out in a way on some episodes where it feels like you're having a villain of the week, which is more like a sitcom kind of thing. And some of those work, like there's a villain named Leapfrog that shows up in an episode toward the end of the season. And I think, it plays up for some decent laughs, but it's not the greatest villain or anything like that. You do get a couple of other great cameos from Wong, who shows up in about 3 or 4 episodes, as well as Daredevil making his first appearance in his new Daredevil suit, and once again being played by Charlie Cox. Him and Tatiana Maslany have great chemistry. The 2 episodes with them together work incredibly well, and it's a pairing of 2 Marvel characters that I didn't know I needed in my life, but the way they interact and their chemistry together works so well that I do hope that they interact more throughout some of their other projects where they, might pop up together with each other. But yeah, all in all, it's an enjoyable series for the most part. It's probably on the lower end of the MCU for me. It just didn't have enough to really get over the hump of certain things. Like I said, with it being a comedy and kind of in the sitcom vein, it works well for what it wants to do, but it felt like there could have been a little bit more push in certain areas to elevate it more. Whether that's, this isn't a show that necessarily needed a lot of action, but, it could have maybe had a little bit of that peppered in a little bit more. The comedy, like I said, it's a little hit or miss, but I enjoyed some of it for the most part. I was laughing throughout most episodes. And like I said, it starts off good with the first 2-3 episodes, and the last 2 episodes are really great, but it's those middle 3, 4, 5 episodes that are kind of they're not all that great. There's not a whole lot going on, at least that worked well for me. But it's not so bad that it's going to take you out of the show. Overall, with She-Hulk, I would probably give it about a 6.5 out of 10. Like I said, there's enough here to enjoy. It's a nice introduction to this character. I do hope that we see more of her, whether it's in a solo Hulk movie or she gets into a team-up movie with another character. Like I said, I do really hope she gets paired up with Daredevil again, whether that's on the Daredevil series or in a possible season 2 of She-Hulk, or, when they probably eventually make her an Avenger. It'd be nice to see them kind of interact some more, and, I'm all here for it. But yeah, that's about it from me, guys. If you have seen She-Hulk, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more reviews in the future. I'll leave all my links in the description on where you can follow me and check out more of my reviews. And until next time, I will catch you all later.